I'm Katie, General Manager of ADAC. Thanks for being here for Digital Day. Just a quick, I did a bit of an introduction earlier, but just a quick reminder to grab your event guide. If there's not one in your seat, there's some back on the table in the rear. We've got pens and books back there that you can take lots of notes because you're going to get great content today. But we have 3 more really great presentations today, and we want to make sure that you know all about them. So grab this event guide. It also has our social media handle, hashtag for today. Have some fun with us on social media. You know, our crowd loves seeing your faces, so make sure you take some photos and post that. We're going to take a break after this presentation, and then we're going to come back at 1 o'clock. So you've got a break to go get some emails done. If you need to grab lunch, the Hungry Peach is open. Remember, it's under new ownership or returned ownership, Johnny, who used to be the owner many years ago. So we're excited to have Johnny back again. So go run to the Peach and come back at 1. And then just remember, all of our events today are recorded, and we will have those up on our YouTube channel. And we'll send an email out after like a couple weeks just to remind everybody that these presentations are on our YouTube channel in case there's any content that you wanted to go check out again or you missed. And then I want to thank Business of Home for sponsoring our full day of events. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Michele Williams to introduce our panel today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. Okay. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to be talking all things project management. And the way that we're going to go about this today is really trying to talk through the strategy of choosing. So I don't want you to walk away thinking that we are saying that all of these designers use a different platform, a different project management tool. And so the goal of today is to help you understand the process that they've gone through, what they like, what they don't like, what we know, what we don't know, so that if you are starting your search, you have that information to already consider, okay? So we're gonna start. I will introduce just very quickly, and then I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. So we have Kelley Harris with Hint Harris, we have Kristin Kong with K Kong, and Mallory Mathison Glenn with Mallory Mathison Inc. And so I am going to start by opening it up to them. And Kelley, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Will do. I'm Kelley Harris. As Michele said, I own Harris Interiors, based here in Atlanta. We are a firm that specializes in country clubs, private clubs, golf, city, and country clubs. And I started working in the business in 2004.
Tell us which project management tool you use.
Oh, and I use Studio Webware.
I'm Kristin Kong. I am the owner of K Kong Designs. We specialize in high-end residential and smaller commercial projects. I, before starting my own firm, worked in commercial architecture for close to 10 years. And I have had my firm now, it will be 12 years in July, and I use Designer Advantage.
Hi, I'm Mallory Mathison Glenn, and as Michele said, my business is Mallory Mathison Inc., also located here in Atlanta, and we do residential design, and I use Design Manager, and in September we'll have been in business for I think 16 years.
Awesome. And my name is Michele Williams, and I'm the owner of Scarlet Thread Consulting and Matrique Solutions, and I am a coach and a consultant and a podcaster and author in the Atlanta area serving the interior design industry. My clients, along with them, I've seen every project management tool that is out there. And some of the ones you're going to see on the slides that we have all prepared for you, not only some of their beautiful work, but you're going to see kind of a bullet point list about each of these different ones. And we have Indema, Ivy or House Pro, Design Manager, Studio Designer, Mydoma, Gather, Design Files, and Designer Advantage. So you're going to see lots of bullet points that give you some information about those as we go into our discussion. Before we begin, we want to know a little bit about you all. How many of you use an interior design project management tool in your business? How many of you are looking to implement one? How many of you use things like Excel and Google and Dropbox? Okay. How many of you use QuickBooks? Okay, how many of you use Excel? Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into talking about some of the strategy behind selecting a project management tool, what they do, how we use them, and that type of thing. So what I'd love to start with is asking we'll start with you. We'll ask the same question for all of you, okay? Tell us a little bit about the tool that you use and how you use it.
Okay. I find it to be pretty comprehensive. It has a great side for the design staff to use. We enter all of our approved selections and specifications and then use it for the whole procurement process. It has a whole separate accounting module that really the design team, we use it for paying vendors, but our accounting team, our controller specifically, uses it for working with our CPA and such. So I would say that if we're guilty of one thing, it's not knowing that side of it, just because I don't think our brains work that way. But to me, it's a great, totally comprehensive, all-in-one procurement and accounting software.
And that's Studio.
That's Studio.
Okay, and how many years have you been using it? Because it was a long time when you mentioned
So
it.
when I started in 2004, the firm that I was working for, we adopted the program in 2006. And this is, I'm dating myself here, but it was before things were cloud-based. So it was an actual, compact disc that you put in the computer and download the software. So when I started my own firm, Studio had just become cloud-based, which was wonderful, but it was a whole new platform for me. But because I knew Studio so well previously, I wasn't willing to teach myself a new trick. So I was happy with Studio and felt like I would take the leap with Studio cloud-based. So that's been how it worked for me.
Okay, so you've been through the multiple iterations then, if you will, of
Correct.
Studio. And that's the thing I'll say is some of these programs, if you haven't used one before, they have multiple iterations. And some of them are still changing. Even we don't have anybody up here that's currently using Ivy, but Kristin, you did use Ivy, and then Ivy became House Pro, and then it changed. Even Studio, it was what, Studio Webware, and
Right,
now
I
it's
think that's what I called it when you asked.
Studio. That's okay, and now it's what I wrote it down.
Designer.
Studio Designer,
Right.
not to be confused.
So yeah, it has evolved, and I'm really happy with the cloud-based version of it because I can access it anywhere as I travel,
Right.
And it's live and.
And I do think the majority of the ones that we're looking at today are cloud-based. And what that means is that it is in the cloud. You're not holding the native code on your computer. And it also means they can go in and make changes at any time. And when you log in the next time, you're going to get the updated changes. So it's a quicker deployment of code and of updates when they present that way. Kristin, tell us a little bit about Studio, or Designer Advantage.
Designer Advantage. So like you said, Michele, I actually started on Ivy. And we were happy with Ivy, and then they got bought by House, and then everything kind of changed. So I was debating, whether to stay, and I knew I didn't really want to migrate to House Pro. So for us in our business, we were really looking for some help on the purchasing side. So what was really attractive about Designer Advantage is that that's part of what you're subscribing to with them. So not only do we have the clipper like all these products have when we're putting together our products, we are, puts it into a proposal for us, we send that to a client. It also interfaces with QuickBooks, which was important to me because I started my business running on QuickBooks, and it would be just too much to try to go into a system that was a different accounting software for us. But then once we get to the point where a client pays for the proposal, then then Designer Advantage takes over. We have a purchasing agent, and they write all of our purchase orders for us. They manage them. We get a report on a Tuesday morning that tells us the status of all of our POs, and so that's just really allowed, because we're a small firm, and it's really allowed, my other staff to do things that I think they prefer doing. I don't think they loved following up on all the phone calls and stuff, so it's opened us up to be able to sort of expand the business without technically hiring another person.
So I don't know if you really captured that or not, but Designer Advantage has Designer Link, which is the program, and then Designer Advantage is the name of the company. And what they do is Designer Link is the project management piece of their company, but you can also use their bookkeeping services and their procurement services. And so what that means is it is like you are hiring a part-time person to run procurement in your firm without having to have that person physically in your building. They are doing that procurement for you. And what they do is they build in that work as a percentage of the product so that when the client pays it, it is actually paying for a percentage of that person's work shipping, handling, and then the price that you have set for the product. So if you are a small company and you're looking for help, that might be something to consider. I will say the one thing we can talk about, I put some of the pricing up there. The one thing about Designer Advantage, they do price a little differently than I would say most of the others do. Most of the others are, I don't know, $39, $59, $79 a month per user per seat. Designer Advantage charges on a sliding scale based on your revenue. So if you have revenues of $100,000, that's like the entry point. If you go up and you're into the millions, then your rates are more expensive because they're providing more services to help you manage your business because they are very involved, okay? So when you hire them, you're not only getting project management, but potentially bookkeeping and procurement assistance, okay? Just so that when we're comparing, you'll know. Studio, as Kelley said, you're getting not only project management, but you're getting accounting, because Studio does do the accounting. It replaces, if you use the system in its entirety, it replaces QuickBooks, okay? So when you are processing these, I just want to make sure that we're making those distinctions. Mallory, tell us about Design Manager.
Yes, so I use Design Manager, which is much more similar to Studio than it is to the Designer Advantage, which I feel like is such an interesting concept. I mean, it's such a different way to do the purchasing arm of your business. So I use Design Manager, and it is, as Kelley said about Studio, it's a comprehensive program that allows you to enter in at the beginning, after a client presentation, we enter in all of our selections, then it will generate, or we generate from it, client proposals. Then from there, once those are approved, we generate POs for our vendor. And then after things are installed, it'll generate an invoice. So you're entering everything in one time to then turn over throughout the entire procurement process. And it also has an arm that is project management, and then an accounting component as well, where you do not, if used to fullest capacity, which we're trying to do, and it takes entering in every single cent you spend and every single cent that comes into your business, like a QuickBooks would. But it's something that will streamline with your accountant for taxes, for sales tax, to run all of your P&Ls, to run ordering reports, to run summaries for if a client asks, how much have I spent, how much we have left to spend on our budget. So it's a great program. It's the only thing that I've ever used. So I know it very well and don't have anything really to compare it to as far as a Studio or an Ivy or a different program like that. It is definitely a program that the documents that it produces look great. It looks very professional. The interface, one thing we kind of struggle with in our office is the interface of it. It's very technical. It doesn't have this very pretty kind of savvy interface to it when you're working in it. I mean, it is like working in a technical program that is nuts and bolts, dollars and cents. One other thing that I've loved about this program is that I can go back in and you have everything there. If you use it, you can see when you've approved the CFA. I can go back to a project from 2009 and look and see what trim that was used, what price it was. It's very easy to go back and pull archive records for people. I had a client a year or two ago who they had moved, and unfortunately part of their house had burned down, and they needed all of the invoices from like 10 years ago for insurance. And it was, it took 5 minutes to go in, pull all that up, and be able to send it to them. So I will say it's not the most user-friendly to begin with, but once you learn it, it's a really, really high-functioning program. And they offer tons of support, and they have a whole team where you can get support, whether it's a 20-minute session or an hour, and they have tons of videos that teach you how to use it. But like anything, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're going to look at in just a minute is what do you love about the program you use? What do you wish it had? And all of these programs are changing all the time. So if you've even used Google, Google changes all the time. You know, there's something that's always shifting. And so there really needs to be, I would say, time and attention spent on investing in the programs that you use. If you're using CAD, if you're using SketchUp, it doesn't matter what you're using. There has to be time. There's a learning curve to everything. So what I would like to ask you now is, when you're thinking back, like I know that some of you have been using a solution for a while, when did you know I need to go look for a solution? Like Google's not cutting it, Dropbox isn't cutting it, email, whatever it was that you were using, even when it was, I'm just starting and I know what it looked like, what was it that prompted you that you knew I need to look for something that's more robust than maybe what you were currently using?
Well, for me, I'd gone from one firm to the next, and I had a first client and a first project. So I was ready, and I knew I needed something. I knew what I started I wanted that to be with me for a while, if not forever. I didn't want to kind of cobble along and try to do Excel purchase orders or QuickBooks or something that I knew wasn't going to be permanent. So I took the leap right away just because I wanted to start something and continue it as long as I could.
So because you had used one, you saw the power of it.
Correct.
And then because you also knew it, it was easier to go ahead and transfer it into the new company. And then you also thought, I don't want to piecemeal this. Like, just let me focus and get it done and move on.
And I can back up a little bit. While I was working for the previous firm, I was doing some freelance stuff on my own, and I was generating purchase orders through Word or Excel. And I just knew in that process that there was no way to keep up with the paper trail and the accounting of it. There was no way to post a payment, for example, and know that it had a zero balance. So I knew that I needed something that was more comprehensive.
Right. Before we go to Kristin to answer this, one thing to consider as you're listening to what they're sharing with you, and Mallory touched on it, it's not even just the management of your business in the moment, it's managing the business of the past. As a financial coach, I'm constantly asking people, send me your P&L from 2 years ago. Let's look at trends. Send me your balance sheet. Send me a project from 3 years ago that you loved, and let's do, project estimations on that. And if we don't have that data, or if that data is all over the place, like Kelley mentioned, even just in pieces and parts, it's not possible to pull it together. And if you're running an entire business in Excel or in Google, that's awesome when you first start. The challenge is you don't have the power of the data behind you to make a fast decision. Every one of the designers up here has the data behind them to make a decision based on empirical data and not a gut feeling. And when you're trying to grow and scale a business, it's about not making a decision because it feels right, but because it is right, and then it also feels right. And that's what data capture does. That's why I'm so data-centric in everything that I do. And so I appreciate you bringing that point up. Kristin, tell us about your journey to software.
So when I started my business, I was coming from a large architectural firm that did not do purchasing. So I started out, and in the first firm that I had worked for, we did purchasing, but we did it through QuickBooks. So we used that. And Excel spreadsheets for budgets and things like that. So that's kind of, I took the first experience I had, and that's how I started mine. And quickly realized, gosh, this is just so tedious because you're entering everything into the budget. And then you're like, okay, well, now the budget's been approved. Now I have to go into QuickBooks, and I enter it all into a purchase order. And then I have to go in and enter it all into an invoice. And there were so many opportunities for user error there where you mistype something. And so I thought, surely there has to be, something better than this. And we found Ivy, and we liked Ivy a lot. Ivy was very pretty. It obviously was designed, by designers, and so they had the look, and I did like the room boards, and, when we were using those. And again, it gave us it took that human error out of it, because when you went to a website, you could click, it went right in, and then it was, when things were approved, you could kind of take it to the PO, the invoice, and they could pay through it, and so, it started to make things more seamless. But we still, I felt like everybody knows that is in our business how tedious the last couple of years have been with lead times, and, and poor Tara, who's here, works for me. That's all she did was have to follow up, because no one was calling you to tell you that things were getting pushed again. And
Right.
So I just felt like, we needed to look for something else. So I'd heard about Designer Advantage, and honestly, I thought it sounded a little too good to be true. Because I thought, what kind of program can I use that they're going to actually do the
Work for you.
purchasing? That yeah, they're going to work for me. And I was thinking it was going to be taking a chunk out of my profit, because I thought I'd have to be taking part of my markup and putting it towards what I'm paying them, and that's not the case. So what they do is you are contracted with them. They handle the shipping, so they have negotiated these shipping rates with companies, so you have to ship through them. So they charge you a flat fee for your shipping, which is pretty in line with the industry. It's like 13.75%.
I actually
right
thought
now.
that was low.
I thought it was low too. And so they charge you that, and then that covers the purchasing. Now you are, as you mentioned, Michele, locked into some bookkeeping, like depending on how much of the bookkeeping you want them to do. But there is a minimum bookkeeping charge a month. But it just to be able to know exactly what the shipping charges are for my client is huge, because that was another thing that took a lot of time to track. And we would collect a percentage on the front, and then we would track everything and sure up at the end,
Yeah.
which is also tedious. But I just, when I decided, I don't think Ivy, because House wasn't really, they were trying to push you to their platform, and I was like, I wasn't necessarily willing to go there. And then I thought, well, this would be a perfect opportunity. So we've only been on it about a year, and there's definitely learning curves, because again, when you dive into something new, it's like, you're just trying to muddle through, and as you start using it, then you're like, oh, I wish this would work like
Right,
this, or I
yeah.
could see this view of something. But I will say that the people that we have assigned to our account are fantastic, and they're always looking. We'll talk to the developer. They're always looking to improve it, so we've been really happy with it.
So Mallory, when you decided in your firm, okay, we can't do what we're doing, and we've got to do something. What was it you were?
Well, I've always had design manager. I've never.
So you were like Kelley. You just came from the prior job and bought it. Yep.
Yes, I've never not had it. I started using it when I worked with Judy in like 2002. I've just never not. And when I decided to go to start working on my own, I just immediately went to design manager because I knew it. But I will say we still use Dropbox. We still use Excel. We still use Google Sheets.
Sure.
We still use a ton of other platforms and programs. Too many to even. And each one of them does their own individual thing that I think is important. But Design Manager is what handles all of the money, the business, the operating cost money, the client money, the vendor money. That's where everything is, and that's such a big part of it. And what I do like about Design Manager is that it's written for the use of a design program. So it is pulling in all of these prompts where, again, like if you have a CFA, you can enter in the tracking and it'll give you these reports. It's made, unlike a QuickBooks, it's made just for business. It's really tailored for interior design, which I've found to be helpful. But we're definitely using all kinds of programs too, just not for invoicing, purchase orders, and proposals. And I think that's so interesting about Designer Advantage. I have some questions about it too that I feel like probably a lot of people
we
do.
need another session.
I think we all have some questions.
We write all of our own purchase orders, and they're so detailed. We might have 7 pieces of trim on one piece of furniture.
Right.
So it's so detailed, and there's so many things to follow up on. I feel like it takes a big leap of just kind of letting go to turn that whole arm over to a third party.
Right. It does. Obviously there's oversight. We just don't say,
Yeah, I was gonna
okay,
say
we're not
that.
going to look at it ever
Right,
again.
of course you
Well,
have tabs
you
on it.
mentioned that you get reports every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday we get the report on what everything, how everything's in. Plus we also have to obviously go through the approval process of the purchase order.
That's
So
right.
when the purchase orders are written, we actually have to physically go in, check everything, and then approve them for them to actually place the order.
And
So.
you do your CFAs.
Yeah, and then if there is a CFA, it comes to me, it does not go to them. So they understand that we're not going to relinquish that. I'm not going to let somebody else make that decision if that CFA is correct or not, so.
And they probably want you to make that
Right.
decision, for sure. One thing to consider here is, again, Google, Dropbox, all of those things. I bet your tech stack is long. Have any of you ever
sat and wrote down your tech stack? How many of you know what a tech stack is?
I have with you.
You have, because I've asked you to do it. Your tech stack, I would encourage you to get out a sheet of paper or get your Excel when you go home or your Google spreadsheets. Write down every piece of tech that you use in your company. I want you to think email. I want you to think Dropbox, Google, CAD, SketchUp, whatever it is, whatever you use. I promise you, when you do it, you're going to see a very long tech stack. Then what I'd love for you to do is put the amount of money beside every piece of tech that you pay for in your business. Then what I would ask you, all the way down to Zoom if you're the one paying for it. I want all your tech written down. Then I would encourage you, so you've listed the tech and you've put the price beside it. I want you to think about how much of it is overlapping. Are there any overlaps where you could remove a piece of tech, change a piece of tech, or where there is a piece of technology that you are not using thoroughly? I'll tell Mallory just a hot minute. When we started, I coach Mallory, and when we started working together, I would say that her firm was not using Design Manager. Like there were some pieces and modules of it that could still be explored and used that were not being used to its fullest. And one of the things we talked about was, don't go get another piece to solve it. Let's see if we can use that. And then she has, instead of using another piece of software, found a use for the software she was already paying for. That's how you maintain profitability in your company. It's not just about choosing the software, it's about investing in it and using it to its fullest so that you then don't go run around and try to buy another piece of software to put on top of it unless you really need it, right? So it just makes you very aware of the fact that you're spending a lot of dollars on tech. But when you look at what Kristin's doing, or any of them, the money that they're spending on the tech behind running these project accounting systems or project systems, project management systems, it's giving them data that if they had to sit down and manually calculate it would take hours or days. And so they can get the information quickly, so then it's worth the $59, $69, $109, whatever it is per month to continue forward. Does that make sense? So there's always a cost analysis that goes with each of these, and I don't want us to miss that. My next question is, share it, and all platforms are up here. Tell us what you like and don't like necessarily, or wish could be a little different in the platform that you are currently using. Because everything's got a good and bad, right?
I like the way that Studio looks. I think it's intuitive for the user, the designer. One of the things I don't like is the accounting side. I think it's far too complex for someone who might not have a bookkeeper. I have a bookkeeper, and I think even for her, it's not. Sometimes she's confused by some of the tedious processes to enter a refund or reverse a payment, or because I've watched her do that, and I try to do that with her together to learn. And that prompted me. We talked about this the other day as we prepared for this. When you decide on a program and you're deciding to make this next step, you're going to need a bookkeeper. That can be a part-time person, but I made the mistake of hiring a bookkeeper who did not know Studio, for my example, and really wasn't willing to learn it. So she started me very early on with QuickBooks as a secondary program. So I'm paying for both, and I will always pay for both because there's really no way to migrate the two this far into it. But that would be the one downside to me, is the complexity of Studio's accounting side. But again, I'm very happy with the way we deal with it on a day-to-day basis as designers.
Yeah, I will say from my experience with Studio, with my clients, very similar to what you've said. The thing is, it is a very robust but complex system with regards to accounting. And you will be hard-pressed to find an accountant that works in QuickBooks, or a bookkeeper that works in QuickBooks, that's willing to it's not just a quick jump in. It is a learning curve. It is a big learning curve for Studio. And so I highly recommend, before you make the jump to Studio, that you find a bookkeeper for Studio first. And I'm going to just warn you, they're hard to find. And then when you find one that has a lot of open spots.
Tell me who it is.
Actually, I would not tell you who it was, because if they have a lot of open spots, I would wonder why. Because it is so hard to find one that it's hard to get in. So if they're so open, they're either brand new and you're gonna need to be careful, or you're gonna ask why. I'm sorry, it's just the way that it is. But it's a good program if you can keep up with the accounting part of it. It really is.
And don't assume, I mean, we're creative people. Don't assume that you can
Right.
be your own financial arm.
No. Yes. I think the integration with QuickBooks, we've seen some little weird things. The one thing.
On the
even-
designer advantage
Designer
side?
Advantage.
Okay.
And again, like, because I had a bookkeeper, I didn't want to let my bookkeeper go. I didn't want to totally use DA for all of my bookkeeping. You know, I'm debating that, but, so it was, you know, understanding, and again, because we manage some of the things, so we're not going to have DA manage our workrooms, you know, our drapery workroom, our custom upholstery and things like that, because, you know, that's again, like, that's more of a personal relationship, and they're here and they're local, and obviously we don't have to pay for shipping, they're charging us like an install cost. So, so some of that little stuff, there was a learning curve where we weren't understanding where, you know, we needed to be applying the payment, you know, it was sort
Right,
of figuring that out. And we've seen a couple things that haven't been syncing quite right. So, like I said, they are really good about, you know, getting on calls with us and looking into it and seeing what's happening on their side, if it's a software thing. So I think that's sort of the biggest thing. It's just this, you know, because again, like I said, I mean, we were in QuickBooks. The thing about that was different, like Ivy only spoke to QuickBooks. QuickBooks didn't speak back to Ivy.
It was a one-way sync.
It was a one-way sync, which is good and bad. DA is a two-way sync, and so that's great, except for the fact that, like, we've gotten all this old data that's been pulled in, and I'm like, I don't need to see this stuff from 2011. So, you know, it's things, little things like that. So it is kind of that integration, again, with the accounting software, but like I said, I can't really abandon QuickBooks at this point, because it's, my whole business was in it from the beginning, and it's just, you know.
One of the things I remember that Kelley mentioned, I think you were the one who mentioned, the Clipper tool.
I think that
Was it Kristin? The Clipper tool in Studio started with the Clipper tool, and you can go out and clip a picture and pull it in and drop it into a catalog or a library of images. And I know Ivy added that, Midoma has added that. Does Designer
DA has it,
Advantage
yeah.
have that? And I don't know about Design
We
Manager.
put pictures in, I don't think there's there's not a library, but we put pictures in.
Okay, but
on
not like
each.
through a Clipper tool, it's just
No.
you put them in, okay. I just know that was a big deal, and that some people were actually
upload.
hesitant at one point to move to another platform because they were so reliant on that Clipper tool. And what about Ivy, since you have some experience with that? What were some of the, or did you ever try out House Pro? Because that's kind of what everybody would have to go to now.
No, we actually never
Didn't
tried
go
it
there?
out.
Okay.
No, we liked Ivy, again, but it was our first kind of,
Right.
oh, wow, like, look what this program can do. It can,
Yeah.
you know, the Clipper tool for us was like, oh, this is like
And the angels
lifesaver,
sang,
yeah.
right?
And then we did like that they had the room boards and things so you could send it to a client. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it was just all that the clients could pay via credit card, or like it was online, and, you know, it just made it more seamless that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have, obviously, prior when we're sending out, like, you know, invoices from QuickBooks. I mean, QuickBooks you can pay through too, don't get me wrong, but, so, yes, and then I just never, once we started seeing that, like, you know, our support person for Ivy was no longer, and it seemed like House bought them for the tech, and I'm sorry if any of you are House people and using House, but I'm not a big fan of House. I think that they just try to monetize our work and use it to sell their products, so.
And it is House Pro is a different product from Ivy. They have shifted the platform and they have changed it. So, you know, that's going to be something you're going to need to look at separately for
Right.
sure.
And I just didn't think they were supporting Ivy.
The same
Like,
way,
no,
yeah.
we just saw like a fall off of, you know, getting in touch with our support person and stuff.
Okay. Mallory, how about you? What do you love? And you've shared a little bit about maybe the interface is a little technical
Right.
and not as updated.
But what you
But
just mentioned is a big thing, being able to send proposals, invoices to clients and have them pay immediately, whether through a credit card, bank account, whatever they need to do. I mean, that's been a huge convenience for our clients. And then, you know, it immediately sinks in. You're not having to go in and enter any of the payments. They just automatically show up and are applied. You know, if a client's paying for 40 proposals, the program, puts the payments where it needs to be. And it also, I don't know if any other designers deal with this, where you have clients who are like, I'll just round this up, or I'll just round this down. And through a platform like that, they have to pay exactly what they're requested to pay. So there's no, I'll just round this all to zeros, which is it just takes extra time to figure that out, and it's problematic. I think that.
Of course. I know, it's so painful. It's like they think they're
You're
doing you a
spending
favor. I'm like,
6 hours over 3 cents that they rounded up.
like, I don't want your 3 cents extra, thank you, but no, thank you.
So I like that. I love being able to have all of our information in one place. And design manager is supposed to be updating their interface that we see. So we're kind of hoping for that any day now. It's just really, it's kind of a tedious program. But I think once you know it, and I would say, unlike Studio Weber, I don't feel like it's necessarily that intuitive. I mean, you have to learn it. Like, it is a learning program. But we have a bookkeeper who she's still learning it and is on calls, still working through things. It is really hard to find. I feel like there's this whole niche industry of accountants who specialize in these interior design programs. They could almost sort of name their price. If you know anyone who is in accounting and is looking for a career pivot.
For all of us.
You're absolutely right.
Becoming an interior design focused accountant, a bookkeeper accountant who knows these programs would be such a marketable position. I have never worked in QuickBooks. I've always done design manager. So I am thankful that everything is in one place where, and like I said before, everything from the beginning is there. It's not perfect, but it's not glitchy. It's great customer service.
It's very solid. It's been around for a very long time.
I mean, it's a little bit of a dinosaur. I mean, it's been around a long time, but it really doesn't ever fail us. It gives us the information we need, the accounting that goes in, the numbers are there, and it's been a good program.
Talk a minute, and go ahead, Mallory, while you're speaking, and share with us, what do you think like the learning curve is? We've talked about learning curve, we talked about complexity. What do you think, like when you bring on new team members and they're trying to learn some of it, what does it take, and how much do you put in?
What do you think the learning curve is? It's a lot.
I mean, it's a lot, right?
It's a lot. I mean, it takes a lot, and you have to kind of bite it off in pieces. And it's like anything, the only way you can learn how to do it is doing it.
And what support do you have with the company with regard to onboarding and learning?
Well, just sitting down together and doing it and going through. And then, what is great about it is that once it's in there, it's in there. So you're not having to, I mean, you do have to go back, and if you use extra yardage or if a price change, I mean, you have to make those little tweaks. But it's never, it does take, if the information is entered correctly, it takes a lot of the human error out of it. The learning curve, I think, is pretty substantial.
I mean, I guess the point here is whether it's you or whether you're hiring team members, we have to allocate time for them to learn this software. Mm-hmm. We can't just assume that they can pick it up. I will say one of the things that I encourage my clients to do is to create your own internal videos, because software is different. So every person is going to interact with that software differently. I bet if I had 4 designers up here using Studio, they would all be using it a little bit differently, or any program. And so if you can start to go into Zoom or Loom, if you know those, pull it up, do some quick videos of this is what we do, this is how we do it. You can put it in a learning library for your own internal company, and then every new person, or even if you need to go back and review, it's already there versus having to sit down and manually reteach it over and over and over. You can also then take that video and give it to a virtual assistant and have them build a standard operating procedure on how you do it. I'm really big in having SOPs in your company. Well, the way you get an SOP is show somebody what you're doing and have it documented. So when you just think about one way to go in and to video what you're doing and how many ways it can be used later for your own remembering, for teaching somebody else, and then for having SOPs, it could be totally worth it. Okay?
Design Manager does have a vast YouTube library.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you can get on YouTube, and I mean, it's like mind-boggling. you could spend days learning what they have to teach you. But I think what we're saying about Studio, there's so much in it that you can use it and kind of scratch the surface, or you can like really get into it, and it can be extremely high functioning for your business. So
I think all of them are like that. You're absolutely right. All of the platforms that we researched have some type of support, email, chat, or you can have a phone call for some of them. They all have learning libraries of videos and YouTube channels or whatever. So the good thing is whichever one you choose, it should have some education behind it. What about?
Sorry, I have one question. Do
Yeah.
we know if Designer Advantage is the only one that offers the procurement arm?
no, there are a lot. There are a lot of companies that do it.
There are other companies that do it, but I don't know that if they're project management companies
Yeah,
that
they
do
work
it.
in
I'm trying to
your-
look. I do not know of any of the others that offer, we will be your project management tool and your bookkeeper and your procurement manager or assistant. I don't know of any that do that, but there are a lot of companies that will come in and do the procurement for you as an adjunct for whatever you're using. There are a lot of design support companies out there. For that.
Comparatively, is that one the most expensive, do you know?
I think it is the most expensive, but if you were to pull out the book, if you were to like parse down the price,
It would
I
be-
don't know that it would be, but because you're paying for the accounting or the bookkeeping and you're paying, a percentage, but you're getting a piece of that right back from the client, so you're not really paying it out of your pocket.
Sure.
Right.
Really, the only part that you're paying is for the bookkeeping and the use of the project
Right.
management tool.
And we put that back to clients. When we kind of, all the projects we're working on, they get a little chunk.
Right,
of
they
that
should
book-
get an
they
admin
get-
fee because
They
I
do,
wouldn't have to
because
go
it is
in
the
here if you.
bookkeeping, right,
Right,
for them.
that's
So-
right.
So basically, we have them then pay what we're paying
That's
monthly
right.
for the accounting services. We're still learning, because we've only been on it about a year. So yeah, it's still very much a learning process for us. They also offer this showroom thing that we talked a little bit about the other day, which, a lot of you have probably heard of Side Door, where, you can send clients and do this. But with DA, what they'll do is they have a showroom, so we still have to take the time to put the products in. We're using the clipper, we're putting it in to the software system. But if we use their showroom, we can send them, hey, can you quote this for us? And then they put it in our system, and then we can buy it through them, and then they give us 10% back.
Think of e-design, or think of clients that don't want to do full design. They want to order on their own, but they're not necessarily wanting to go out to Home Goods to source it all. So what you're doing is you can do the first part of the design, or you can have a shop the look so that you could create a branded look for your company, put it into showroom and send it out to clients, potential clients, and they can buy that without you really having to even go out and do much. So you can do a little or a lot, but it just gives you another opportunity to bring in profit. Okay. And what was your learning curve like? I know you've been doing it for a long time. Do you remember all those years ago?
No,
Are you still learning
I'm
parts of
still
it?
learning for sure. And the platform changes. We had a big reset of the platform about 3 years ago. And I remember just the panic of
Yeah.
the message we got, like, Studio is going to be updating and it's going to look different. And I was just like,
Oh, no.
SHIT.
Yeah.
But then, we got to know it, and it was a lot better. And it updates itself, as you mentioned, they all do. You get a message and say, refresh your browser, we've updated it. You don't really know what it did, but something's better. And so there's always a learning curve, and there's certainly a learning curve for anybody who starts new. And we kind of, we take little baby steps of what each of us can do, as we spend more time together at the firm. But I try to keep the client's money between myself and my bookkeeper.
Yes.
So there's no error there. But writing specs is probably the first lesson. And then we move to sending purchase orders, and then posting payment is probably the last step, because it's, again, part of the accounting module, and that's more complicated. But
Awesome. All right, so I have one last question before we open it up to Q&A, and that is, what do you wish you had known when you were looking for a project manager that you know now that you didn't know then?
Well, kind of to expand on what you were saying, Design Manager is the same thing too. We upgraded from like regular Design Manager to Design Manager Pro, which is just has a lot more features. They also have a Design Manager that's fully tailored towards anyone who has retail. So you have this whole inventory system that is for retail, which we don't have a retail arm, so we didn't need that. But I really was nervous too, and it took me. I mean, there's still certain things that I will try to do in Design Manager that I knew how to do before, but don't know how to do now. I have to relearn how to do it. I really wish that I had, from day one, used the program to really learned it and used all the capabilities that it had, and had a bookkeeper who knew the program and just did all, and just completely had every cent in it, both incoming and outgoing, rather than, going to a few different avenues to finally get to the point where I have a bookkeeper who is doing that.
That's awesome.
Used it to its
Absolute
fullest
fullest.
capability.
Which really is about, and here's the important part, that means to create a strategy for how project management is going to fit into your business. Not just tactically jumping in and doing a few things, but creating a true strategy that says, I'm going to invest in this program, I'm going to use it to do these things, and then go deep enough for it to show up for the worth that you have, hopefully purchased it for. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
And one other question. I know there's some of these programs, or not a comment, where they have a client portal, so your clients could log in and kind of see what you're doing.
Yes.
And does Studio have that? Or
It does, and I'm not letting that happen.
Yeah.
I'm not letting
Design
anyone-
Manager doesn't have that. So that's something that I'm not really.
I mean, there's nothing to hide. That's
Right.
just like another level.
And
It
that's
is.
just another
Well,
thing to put
teaching
information
someone
in.
how to-
It is.
Right.
It is.
I mean, and once you're going with the tech stack, you get to the point where you're like, how many times are we entering this information
Yeah.
in different places?
Well, and I hear love-hate with that, that there's some, Ivy had a client portal, I know my Doma has one, a couple of the others do as well. But then you have clients who go, I don't like that. I'm not, right? If you have clients right now that are like, I only want to talk to you on the phone. There's some that only want to text. And I know that you set company rules for this is how we're going to communicate, but to then force them into another program may or may not, again, back to strategy. It may not fit the strategy that supports how your business, how you want to control information. Kristin, what about you? What do you wish you had known then that you know now?
Maybe just about the product, learning about DA years ago. I mean, I don't know if it would have been as good as it is now, but,
Right.
because I think.
They just had an update a couple of years ago, too. They're relatively updated.
So I think, maybe not having gone into Ivy, maybe knowing that House was going to buy Ivy, maybe that was probably after we just switched. So then you're like, oh, great, now we have to switch again. So I think that's just it, maybe learning about it,
So really kind of understanding what were the real options
Right.
out there and what they
Yeah,
did.
because I didn't know. I mean, it's hard to find. I mean, you see these things, but, having something like this where you can hear people using it, I think would have been really beneficial because
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I would get these emails from DA, but I was like, oh, it's, it was spam and because it sounded too good to be true. So just, having somebody that I could have talked to about.
And I think the truth of the matter is, we don't need something until we need it. And so sometimes we don't even start the research until we need something. And usually if we need it, we're already past the point of needing it. So now we're in a hurry. One thing that I've always done is if you go out, like if you were to say Ivy, right, or House Pro, and you're thinking, who are the competitors? You can go into the search engine, Google, Bing, whatever you use, and put competitors of Ivy, competitors of House Pro, and it'll come up and show you competitors. You can take the next one and go competitor of Designer Advantage, and it's going to show you the next one. There are blogs out there. There are plenty of information out on the internet. If you start searching, compare these. People have done a lot of work and a lot of research out there, so that's a tool that you can also use. One of the things they've all mentioned in some way is the products are being updated. When you go to look, find out how often they update their products. Find out how they tell you that they're updating their products, because that really matters as well. What about you? What do you wish you had known?
I wish I had attended things like this. I wish I had done more research, asked more questions. all of you are welcome to call me. I don't know if I'm speaking for all of us, but if you have questions specific to my program, I'm happy to answer them. But just ask questions. I mean, this really truly becomes part of your brand. The way your
Yes, it
invoices
does.
look, your purchase orders look, your process. So start early, get the right program for you. It's really difficult to change programs midstream. Integrating past data is not always helpful, and it doesn't translate always.
That's right, that's right.
I mean, I remember I gave Studio a whole workbook of vendors and contacts that I'd collected, and you would think it would just all seamlessly integrate, but it doesn't.
It doesn't. That's a good point. Also, a lot of these have free trials. Do a free trial. I personally would be a little, I don't want to say wary, but I would say you might want to really think about one that you're having to pay from the very beginning or that doesn't at least give you a demo, right? Because once you start, even in the free trial, and you dig in, you're kind of in it.
You're in it.
Right? And so you can certainly try it. At least watch the demo. Some of them only show you a demo for that reason, because they know that once you get in, you're kind of in it. But use that, try them out. I have a software background. I worked 10 years for Dun & Bradstreet building financial application software. And we would tell people all the time, you've got to try the software to see if it fits you. That's why there's so many out there. I mean, I read you a list, and there's even more out there. They're being developed all the time trying to solve the problem. And there's not, I wish I could give you the one silver bullet. We all do. The one thing that answers all the questions for everybody, but it does not exist. And so it's really about creating the process, as Kelley said, that represents your company, your brand, the way you work, and the way that you want to present your work to your clients. Okay.
And the time billing aspect, we haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
So Design Manager has a way to track time. You can have an app on your phone with it, but we don't use that. And I just don't like the way that it looks.
Same. Studio does too, but we use a different program.
And DA doesn't, but Ivy did, and we liked it. And then so now it's, they've recommended Harvest because it will integrate, which I know. you said
Harvest,
is-
T-Sheets, and Clockify are the three that I see the most if you're looking for time trackers. I would say Harvest is the one that most people say is most robust and gives them the most beautiful reporting. T-Sheets is awesome because it was an independent company. It was bought out by Intuit, and it integrates with QuickBooks. And Clockify also has really beautiful reporting that you can use. But I want to just encourage you to also keep up with the time that you spend, even if you do flat rates and square footage, because everything that you do is tied to time. All of the project management is tied to time. What you put into the system is time. What you do for your clients is time. And that's valuable, and that's also what they're paying for. Anything else you all want to add before we open for questions? No?
I just would want to say, though, like as much as I do love Studio, I think if I had also spent more time getting to learn it on the front end, I think the result would have been better. So I do think because it is such an older program and it has worked through a lot of the kinks, you would find less problems than some of the newer ones that are
Yes.
still working through the kinks. So I would completely recommend it. I just would recommend that you
Just go all
spend
in.
the time,
Right.
and figure out how to use it. And I'm still using excuses of not learning how to use it. So.
And that's the same thing Mallory said. If you're going to choose one, go all in.
You've got to
Go all
commit
in.
to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you have questions, if you raise your hand, we have a microphone over here.
And I'm just going to ask if you will wait for me to get to you, because we are videoing all of today's presentations, and the sound quality is much better.
Okay, Kristin, I have all the questions about Designer Advantage because I currently use House Pro. So have you ever done a cost analysis to compare the percentage that you're giving up for them to procure your items versus the cost of having the employee to?
Well, I'm not really giving it up because it's actually the shipping cost. So basically, I charge my client that shipping cost. That covers their shipping, and then it covers the actual procurement process with them. So that's when I thought, like, oh, this sounds too good to be true, because I thought, oh, for sure, like, I'm going to have to take part of my markup, and it's going to be for this. But no, it's actually, they charge you a flat rate for shipping because they have negotiated that. So you have to ship through them, I will say that, which we haven't really had any problems with. And so then that shipping charge, which to me is great, because then that's, taken care of on the front end instead of you price the purchase order, then you're either like shoring up what you've collected from the client already or however you're doing it. And then, you know, my bookkeeping is $500 a month with them.
Which is very low.
Yeah, but I still have a bookkeeper too, so that's part of it. It would be more, and it would be based on the volume that you do, but I use their baseline.
It's very reasonable, though.
Yes, so it's $500 a month, and that literally gets billed back to my clients who are, you know, we're working on their projects.
So you're not paying them like a percentage of the total product, it's just
Nope.
in shipping?
It's
Okay,
just
that's
the
great.
shipping.
So then say, for example, you have like your local vendors that you say, well, I don't really need to put that through Designer Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, sometimes we find that even the designer brands, it's sometimes more cost effective or better
Yep.
margins for us to buy it from like Overstock or Wayfair, right? But then,
Right.
so in those examples, how exactly, so do you not put it into Designer Advantage at all? And you have
No,
to,
it's still in there, but we reject the purchase order. So
Okay.
that's how you handle it. You basically reject the purchase order and then we handle it. There is, Tara, help me again with the flat fee. If they handle something or.
Didn't you say like $25 or something?
$25, yeah. So to have it all in the system and then not do anything, it's a $25 fee.
okay, got it. And then my last question, because I don't want to hog the microphone, but my other question would be, do they actually consolidate the items, check for damage, and then ship directly to the client?
So no, they basically ship to wherever your receiver is.
Okay.
But if something does come in damaged, they handle the claims for damage. They
Okay.
handle the whole thing from like purchase, track it, get it to the warehouse. It gets to the warehouse, it's inspected, it's perfect, and that's when you pick it up and then get it
So you just
installed.
have to check for the damage, but then notify them if something is
Yeah,
damaged?
so my receiver
Okay,
will check
got
for
it.
the damage
Okay.
and notify
It does sound really good, doesn't it?
That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
I still have more questions, but I can catch you after. Thank you.
I have a question about it. I would love to hear, well, I would love to hear from anybody, if there's anybody here who works in a showroom or is on the receiving side of that communication with Designer Advantage. You know, where if we're dealing with dial-out issues or if we're doing, you know, cut
Yep.
links or whatever,
Yep.
we're talking directly to somebody, let's say just at Schumacher. We're talking to somebody so I'd be interested to hear from somebody who is working with Designer Advantage,
I
but
think
on the
she
other
has her hand
end.
raised. Do you work with them on the showroom side?
Hold on. So actually, as you were talking, I was like, we just got our first somebody saying that they were using a third party, and we didn't understand it because
Yes.
we are a multi-line showroom, and we're not the manufacturer, so the vendors determine who ships, like like we do Lee, and they have their own LTL trucks. So I
Right.
guess I don't really understand how that would.
So I can talk a little bit because, I mean, I have one rep who does not like it at all. And I do think because we have run into that in the beginning, like where we had a mix-up. Again, it was the learning process and not understanding about rejecting the PO. So they kept calling our drapery workroom, and they're like, who are these people calling? But they also were calling to check that the fabric had arrived. And so, you know, we had to go out and make sure we told everybody, hey, like we're using this new system. Abby's with Designer Advantage. She basically will be calling on our behalf. Yes, you can talk to her. Yes, you can disclose that information with us. And then we have a rep who she doesn't really like it, and I don't understand why. I don't know, maybe they call too much because, they are checking on the product. So, but we have to educate and tell like the people because they're still using your account numbers. It's not like side door where they're ordering, like they're still using my account numbers, unless I guess I go through that showroom thing, which we haven't really done yet. But, so yes, you need to make your vendors aware that this is basically an arm.
The sheer act of having someone who's chasing tracking is a huge
It's
It is
huge.
huge.
part of
Yeah,
that.
ask Tara, that's all she used to do, poor thing.
What other questions do you have? Anybody else have a question? Up here.
I have a question about the clipping tool. It sounds very exciting. What all does it do? Like is it like, I know we use Pinterest a lot to create boards, and so you can snap a picture of the image and then it pops it into your Pinterest board and it takes the link and all the information. What information does the clipping tool include?
Do you
And then also, what happens if the
Yeah,
price
but
changes and
we don't use it a
What
whole
was the
lot.
last part?
what happens if the price changes? Like, does that automatically change in the clipping tool, or do you need to go in and
You need to
do
kind of go
that?
back, so, and that's the other thing, so sometimes, so basically when you log into your vendor website, so your pricing will be shown, and as you click, you kind of right-click on the different fields that it's asking you. So we'll put the SKU, the dimensions, all this information in there, and you can add things. Now, and you put the price. Now, of course, like, if the price changes, we go back and update that. So that's the only thing where it's not like a live
Right.
link to the site. It just is that sort of snapshot. But the one thing that I don't know any software, maybe somebody else does. The one thing that we still use Photoshop. I mean, we used to use Oleo board, and I loved it. And then that became Gather, I think. I don't know. It's like, but because to do boards, I mean, we still use Photoshop. So, we'll still have images and kind of put it together for more of like a presentation type thing. Because this is a true like purchase order where it's just showing you the picture, all the information, and the price for the client.
Right. And by using that clipping tool, it puts it all in for you.
Puts it all in there, yep.
Which it's just whatever information happens to be on that page.
Right, but then if we have other things, because like you said, I mean, we know the fabrics. When you're going to a website, like you're like, well, we're doing COM and this is it, and so we type all that in.
Right.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Can you
Right.
stick around? Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll let you wrap it up, and then I'll.
Yeah, I'll just say that if you have questions, certainly you can reach out to any of the four of us to ask questions. We'll share the information we have. I think what you've also recognized, and we even recognized as we were talking about it, that this is a topic that really takes time and attention and strategy and focus on. And there's so much to learn because all of these technology opportunities are changing all the time. So I guess the big takeaway we would all say is whichever one you choose, go all in.
Go
I
all
think
in,
that's what
yeah.
we've all said. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. That was really wonderful. And I know many of you probably still have some more questions, and I'm sure that Michele and our panelists will stick around to help you with those individual questions. There was a lot of great content here. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll take a 45-minute break for anyone who needs to grab a quick bite. Remember the Hungry Peach, and we'll meet you back here at 1 o'clock for our third presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Katie.